So how many of these stalks do you need for your rhubarb?
I'm making a cake tomorrow and I'm making crumble for tonight. You get out of the way.
And the chooks don't like the rhubarb leaves, or are they poisonous?
Poisonous.
Aha.
Minor detail, I know.
Is that all?
Okay, so I needed a good excuse to make this recipe because it's just a joy. This recipe really is a joy. Okay, chopping board. What we are making today is a Dutch apple pie. Now, I know people have been arguing with me about it, that this, my mother, no, a Dutch apple pie doesn't have this or it doesn't have that and it has to have the plaits across the top, and I don't care. I am calling this a Dutch apple pie, and for those of you who want to argue with me, go ahead, but it's worth making whatever you want to call it. Just call it apple pie. And for a change, because we had rhubarb in the garden, I am making it a Dutch rhubarb and apple pie, which I'm sure is not Dutch at all, but I know we ate rhubarb as kids with custard, which was yum, warm rhubarb with cold custard. Oh, so good. So that's just one of my fond childhood memories. Mum didn't enjoy cooking much, but she used to like making things like that. My mother's custard, on the other hand, not a joy to behold. She used to get impatient. We'd end up with lumpy custard, and then she would put in something she called bitterkoekjes, which were tiny little, I think, almond macaroons, and they were to hide the lumps, I'm sure. But if you left them in a bit longer, they would soggy up a bit, and they were quite nice. And it's what we were used to. We always had a 3-course meal. Soup and a main, a dinner plate of main, and then we would have dessert. It was a lot of food, which you didn't need in Australia. We weren't burning off the cold like in Holland, but we ate Dutch for a very long time. Actually, I really enjoyed it. My mother used to be the manager at I think she was called a manager, I'm not sure what she was called, at an old people's home that was for the Dutch. And the lady who cooked was very Australian, and she made the most incredible ginger sponge, and she made golden syrup dumplings to die for. Oh, her cooking was amazing. Lovely Grace Jones. She was such an excellent cook. So I wish I had her gift. She was just one of those great people who was just a natural at it, and she loved feeding people, so we appreciated it, because you could always sneak a bit when you went to the kitchen. I was an adult by then. Okay. Tante Sin's apron, my auntie, my great auntie. Yes, my great auntie. Right, so we have in there 1.5 cups of butter, and we are going to put in 1 1/3 cups of brown sugar. And I'm actually going to use my 3rd cup because it'll be easier to get it out of the container. A pinch of kosher salt. Where's my pinch? Dash, tad, drop, smidge, pinch. Pinch of kosher salt. And there is a difference between the salts for those people who wonder. Pinch of salt. We'll start churning this up. All right, now this isn't a traditional food processor, as some of you may have spotted. It is a Ninja, because for the life of me, I cannot work my food processor. I don't know why. So when it doesn't incorporate everything, just slide it down. I'm going to get lessons. I can't believe it's so hard to work a machine. Can't possibly be. All right, I'm going to churn that up a little bit more and then add 2 eggs. I'm going to add to the flour bit by bit, but So I'm going to add 5 cups of all-purpose flour, and I'm going to use my hands, which are clean, really clean, not like Eugene clean. I just love the tactile feeling of, I don't know, something about it, going back to the old ways, not always using a machine. I know I've cheated already, but, oh yeah, I forgot this bit. Now how am I going to do the 5 cups of flour? I should have measured it out first. Okay, here we go. I didn't forget you were there. All right. It should come together as a soft, pliant dough. Oh, this stickiness. Something about childlike, about playing in gooey stuff like mud pies and, I don't know. Brings out the inner kid in us all, I think. All right, let's get some of this goop off so I'm not dropping it in the flour container. So this is cup 3. Now I've got a whole bunch of spices out to show you what actually goes into the Dutch apple pie mix. So it's all sorts of things. Nutmeg, ginger, cardamom. What else is there? Coriander, nutmeg, aniseed, cloves and cinnamon. So it's a really warming, bitey, interesting flavour. So if there's one particular ingredient you don't like, you could leave it out. I don't know why you would, because they come together to make something really special. And the smell in your kitchen when this is cooking is going to be amazing. So you can see it's still really sticky, even though there's 3 cups of flour in there already. All right, we're going in for number 4. Now another reason for doing Dutch apple pie is that my daughter is currently on her way or already arrived in Holland for the night. She's staying one night to visit her great aunt, my father's sister, and she's also visiting other relatives, the children and the grandchildren and the great-grandchild now. So that's all pretty special stuff. She's the only one who's going to have met some of these people in our family. So that's all really important. Keep those links. That's actually where I was born, and my parents and my 3 younger brothers all came out together a long, long time ago. As you can tell, I still have my fabulous Dutch accent. Not. All right. I'm going to be very careful to do exactly a cup for this, and I might not even add it all to start with. The thing is, I have very large eggs from my chickens, which is great, but sometimes can muck up a recipe. I wish they would tell you the weight of the eggs that you needed sometimes. And that way, the recipe could be more exact. Some recipes do, but they're usually tested by like Home Kitchen and American Home Kitchens and places like that, proper home economic centres. Most of us just have a crack. It's got to come together just. And this is not a pastry you roll. It's a pastry that goes in pieces and gets pushed into shape. So it's very interesting. That looks pretty good. Now I'm going to rest this and tidy this mess here up a little bit. And this will rest while we prepare the apples. For this recipe, they're saying 7 firm apples, 3 soft apples. So we get in the supermarket what they call the odd bunch. So we are going to do 5 strange in bits red ones, we are going to do 3 ones that completely collapse. And then, because it actually says 7 apples in the recipe, I am putting in a couple of apples worth of rhubarb that I've pre-cooked, chopped it into pieces, and then cooked it for 2 minutes in the microwave. Now, you think, oh, peeling apples is such hard work and so time consuming. Wrong. Now I need for this recipe 2 tablespoons of freshly squeezed lemon juice, my lemon squeezing implement that I have shown you before. This is fabulous. Best present ever, Lauren, thank you. Here is my fabulous apple peeling implement. If you use apples a lot in cooking and you don't have one of these, you've got rocks in your head. Pop it on, move it forward till it gets to the peely bit. Once it's gone all the way through to the end, you have apple in one hand, core in the other. Oh, I forgot a dish for the peels. Compost, here we come. Do I call out now and tell him I need a bigger kitchen? Okay. So what I do, usually if no one's watching, I will eat the bits without the peel, and then I just chop it into pieces. Just chuck any pips out. Usually they get stuck in the core. And seriously, if there's a little bit of skin in there, who cares? It's apple pie and it's homemade and it'll taste divine. Now if you're going to do this, you really need good ice cream and cream to accompany it. Do not buy no-name brand. Honestly, if you're going to go to all the trouble of making an apple pie where you're saving lots of money, because this apple pie goes a long, long way. Because you can't, honestly, you can't have huge pieces of it. I'm saving that bit for me. It really is very filling. To put it together. So I colour the base. With greaseproof or of some kind. I always cut it off. I know some people don't. It tends to catch fire sometimes or burn, and then it smells awful. Right, now we get the pastry. And we're going to take about a third of it for the bottom. Now, I am going to spray the sides. Okay, so this you spread out evenly across the bottom. Now if it creeps up the sides a little bit, that's okay because you're going to join the sides onto the bottom. It is very warm in this kitchen right now, what with the light for the videoing. The oven is heating up in the background, so it's quite warm in here, and the heater is on, of course, because his Nibs is home. First thing he does when he gets in the house in winter is turn the heater on. I'm quite happy to put an extra layer on. Okay, so you're saving about a quarter of the pastry for the top, and the rest is going around the sides. That's all right, just throw it on there so you know how much you've got. And then you're going to go around and tidy it up and pull it apart and push it together and all those wonderful things. Just go around and make sure it reaches the top and there are no splits in the pie crust anywhere. This is a really different sort of pie crust to what I'm used to, but this is definitely not a crispy pie, and the flavours have to settle in. Try and make sure when you put it in that the rhubarb is distributed evenly, and if it has clumps, then pull it apart a bit. All right, now you're pushing down, try not to leave any room. This will settle a little bit during baking, and don't forget I still have to fit a lid on this pie. Ooh, oh, this is going to be good. Now, try and press it down as much as you can, and then we're going to pop the crust on top. So how you do it is you put bits on like that, covering it up. There we go, see, it all works, it's like magic. And no, Mum, I didn't do the lattice. This is what the recipe says to do, and I liked this recipe the last time I made it. It worked really well for me, so if it ain't broke, don't fix it. One day I will do you one with a plait, I promise. I just have to learn how to do that first. I've always seen it and I've always wanted to learn it. Now I'm motivated. So 1 Dutch apple tart. I'm sure that's a tart, not a pie. So I don't even know if what a Dutch word for a pie is. I always thought of tarts when I was growing up in Holland as a kid. So I don't know. Pie is very Australian to me. Football, meat pies, kangaroos, and Holden cars. That was the song. Football, meat pies, kangaroo, and Holden cars. Kangaroos and Holden cars. So I'll correct myself, otherwise someone else is bound to. Okay, so then you get a beaten egg, and you cover the whole thing up. And once you've done that, it goes in the oven. And after that's cooked, I'll show you the end result. The camera was playing up, so I took it, at 75 minutes I checked it, it was starting to brown, so I covered it with foil, and then I took it out after an hour and a quarter. I mean, it depends on your oven, of course. Right, so now, before I undo the spring, I'm just going to make sure the top part is loose. I've done this before, so I remember what that was like. I put it on an oven tray because sometimes it leaks. It gets very juicy and it leaks. So, all right, here we go. Let's see. Fingers crossed. Now you've got to leave it sitting in the spring form pan until it is completely cold, because remember the pastry was fairly soft. All right, here we go. Oh, that came out okay. So now I'm going to lift it up and put it on a plate. So it has got the grease proof underneath. So, oh, wow. Okay, that worked. Piece of pie. I can't say piece of cake. All right, now let's get a kniff and see how it comes out. Do I say a blessing? Oh, all right. Sounds okay so far. That came out quite nicely. I don't mind that. So, if you want the recipe, let me know below and keep up with his lordship.